Welcome back to another edition Penn State 365 podcast. I'm your host, Richie O'Leary, joined as always when we're talking Penn State football, my co-host, HappyValleyInsider.com's very own Dylan Callahan-Crawley. Dylan, we are in game week finally. It is almost here. Thursday night kickoff, college football playoff semifinal versus Notre Dame. First time they played Notre Dame in a long time, as you've seen via some of the tweets that you've put out on our Twitter account at Penn State Rivals. So check those out. A couple cool highlight clips and stuff like that. What are we kind of thinking with this one? Just high-level thoughts to start.
Uh, yeah, I mean, this is, I think first, if you're a Penn State fan, I think first take a deep breath here as you listen to this, whether it's Tuesday, Wednesday, or even on Thursday, because God knows that you would not be enjoying the game on Thursday until the game is over, and hopefully for Penn State fans' sakes, it's Penn State on the winning end, but uh, this is going to, and the reason I say you're not going to enjoy it is because barring a Penn State blowout, which I don't see this being a blowout in either direction, this is going to be an old-fashioned, scrappy, ground and pound game from both sides here, and it's going to be close throughout. I mean, I think I'm projecting this game to go under 40 points. I think this is going to be much like what we saw last weekend in New Orleans between Georgia and Notre Dame. It's going to be a defensive battle. It's going to be a really fun one. Obviously, it's been a long time since these two teams last met, 2007. They only met in one other bowl game in 1976. I think it was the Gator Bowl. Um, but this is a matchup that was for 16 years a pretty strong rivalry there from 1976 to 1992. Then they didn't play till '06 and '07 again. Now it's been uh, you know 17 years since we last saw these two teams meet. Uh, so it's very cool to see this rivalry game have kind of a rebirth here in the biggest stage, on the biggest stage. It's obviously going to divide Pennsylvania quite a bit with its allegiances. A lot of Penn State Notre Dame fans out there. I don't think anybody who is from the state needs me to tell them that. But yeah, I think these two teams are very similar in style. I think I like Penn State at almost every position compared to Notre Dame, especially considering the injuries that the Fighting Irish have had. But this is not going to be an easy game for Penn State. This is going to be one that I think goes down to the wire in the fourth quarter. Uh, and we'll give our picks at the end, but it's going to be hold on to your seat type of game, I think, for both fan bases.
I find it wild that Notre Dame has just fans across the country. And trust me, I'm Irish. I get it. Like, my last name is O'Leary, so I get it. But it's just insane that all these guys, it's like, oh, have you ever been to South Bend? Did you go to South Bend? Like, did you grow up like in Indiana? No, no, and no. And it's like, oh, okay. You're how?
It's yeah, it's kind of like the Braves. The Braves in the '90s were on everybody's television across the country because of
Yeah.
TBS. Notre Dame. Uh, I mean, what was the insane stat from last 2 weeks ago that the playoff game was the first um,
Non
Notre Dame
NBC
game
game.
not home game, not on NBC, and a ridiculous amount of years. I mean,
Yeah.
they've been on national television ever since I can remember on their own channel. It's definitely that, but it's always been one of those major brands in college football. They've always been willing to travel long distances for games. It's
Mm-hmm. No, the
it's
donor
Notre Dame.
support's
I mean,
there. Like,
on a personal note, I mean these. I'm looking forward to going down to Miami on Wednesday, but these are the type of matchups that, like, as guys who cover this sport, we want to see. I mean, just
mhm.
from throughout the current modern teams that we are seeing on the field on Thursday, it's a game between Penn State and Notre Dame for a chance to go to the national championship game. I mean, it does not get bigger than that.
Mm-hmm.
There's not many games that get bigger than that. Two legendary programs. I mean, this is what college football is all about. This is what they hope for. What the college football playoffs expanded. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Ohio State and Texas is pretty damn big itself too. I mean, these are four of the most legendary programs in all of college football. Uh, and funny enough, I think Texas may be the odd man out there, but
It's
four of the
crazy to
most
say that.
legendary four of the most legendary programs in college football history, at least from a brand standpoint, and
Mm-hmm.
we get them in these games this week, so that's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, hell, I see people like complaining about the 12-team playoff, and it's like, dude, you wouldn't have this. Well, you wouldn't have two of these teams specifically if you didn't have the 12 teams. So definitely cool to see. Let's do it a little different this week for a
Yeah,
game preview. Let's go position by position because you did say that you feel like Penn State has the edge on each, on most,
yeah,
if not all. I'm curious your thoughts on those. So let's start with quarterback. Riley Leonard, a little bit more mobile than Drew. Put up
yeah.
career high numbers, 20. I'm looking at 66% completion percentage, 2,300 yards, 18 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. We know Drew's been pretty damn good this year. He's been almost, I would argue, elite over the past couple games. But
Yeah.
I'm assuming you're going with Penn State in this one.
I mean, from a pure quarterbacking perspective,
Yeah.
yeah. If one of these quarterbacks is going to step up and have a big passing day, it's going to be Drew.
Hmm.
Um, he's the NFL talent. He's the future first round pick, maybe even first overall pick. Riley Leonard's a really good quarterback. He's a really good college quarterback, but I mean, I don't expect him to take over this game. He has only uh, 2,300 yards on the season. He does a good job of not turning the ball over. He only has six interceptions, eight turnover worthy passes according to PFF this season. He does a good job of keep protecting the ball. He doesn't get sacked a whole ton because of his legs, and he can be mobile. I mean, 800 plus rushing yards this season is really impressive, but he is not the type of quarterback that can go out there and carve up a secondary as as a Dylan Gabriel can, or even a Will Howard can.
Used to, for
He
Gabriel at
oh
least.
yeah, used to. He's not that level quarterback. If you give him the windows, he will hit those windows. But
Hmm.
I mean, we saw Notre Dame play a really good Georgia defense this past week, and he was able to get down on the ground 80 plus rushing yards, but or 80 exactly, but only 90
Hmm.
passing yards. I just don't see Notre Dame being able to win this game with only 90 passing yards if Leonard puts up a similar performance. And I think this Penn State defense is pretty on caliber with Georgia, if not better than Georgia's defense, especially up front this season.
Hmm.
If Penn State can, you know, keep Leonard from escaping the pocket too much and hurting them on the ground, I just don't see much avenues for this Notre Dame team to move the ball consistently on Thursday.
Hmm.
And with that, I'll just say that I expect Abdul Carter to play, and I think if Abdul Carter does play, we're going to see a lot of linebacker. He was playing quite a bit of linebacker against Boise, and I would just put him on a QB spy on Leonard for most of this game.
Hmm.
Because the other thing, one, it keeps Carter potentially from re-aggravating his injury, with it seemingly being a shoulder injury, being in the trenches for 40, 50 snaps during the game will cause probably some considerable pain throughout. At
Hmm.
linebacker, at least, you're not getting, hit every single play. But at the same time, if Carter or one of other Penn State's defenders can lay a couple big hits on, clean but big hits
Hmm.
on Leonard while he does take off, it could make him a little bit wary to take off as the game goes on. And historically, I could be wrong, but I don't believe he's a guy who's is extremely durable. He's good at playing through pain, but
Hmm.
I mean yeah, he played only 7 games in 2023. He was banged up earlier this season during that NIU loss for Notre Dame. So I mean, it'll be interesting, but yeah, I'm taking Drew over Riley Leonard.
Let's be honest too. They're at game what, 15? No, 16 of the season. They are not used to this either. Like everyone's probably playing through pain. To be fair.
Exactly, exactly. There's nobody healthy.
Yeah, which
Nobody
is
is healthy.
crazy. So I know I went QB versus QB for the first one, but I want to actually change that. I want to go for the next one: rushing attack versus rushing defense. We know Penn State
Yeah.
just shut down two damn good running backs, arguably the best. I shouldn't say arguably the best running back in the country in
Yeah.
Ashton Genty, and then I forgot, I can't remember the SMU's kid's name. I feel like it started with a B. Bernard
Uh,
Smith,
yeah.
something like that.
It sounds
Something
fun.
like that. Either way, he put up like 1,600 yards, and they stopped him too. Can they stop this rushing attack that has a combination of guys, whether it be Riley Leonard, who actually leads the team in attempts, but has 15 touchdowns himself, and then Jeremiah Love, who has 1,000 yards and 16 touchdowns, and then even Jadarian Price, he's got 700 yards and 7 touchdowns. So that's like over 35 touchdowns, over, I'm looking now, 2,500 yards between the three of them. Can they stop it?
Yeah, so the stat I want to put out there, and somebody's going to be like, well, you can't just take away those things and make the stat whatever you want it to be. But yes, you can.
Mm.
One, Jeremiah Love had that 98-yard touchdown run against Indiana. We all remember that.
Mm-hmm.
Great play. Riley Leonard had 80 yards against Notre Dame. Both those plays went huge ways in deciding those games. You take away that run against Indiana, that's a whole different game. You take away Leonard's legs against Georgia, a whole different game. That being said, excuse me, and as I wrote about it in the matchups article that I put out on Monday morning, this is a Notre Dame rushing attack that outside of Leonard's run last week, 80 yards last week, was kept at 3.3 yards per carry. And then if you take away the 98-yard run against Indiana, they were kept to 2.7 yards per carry. All in all, in those two games, the Notre Dame running backs taking away the 98-yard touchdown run since that was one play, so take away the outlier, is averaging about 3.2 yards per carry in two playoff games. That's not going to get it done against Penn State. Uh, and if you're Penn State, I think you have to love the matchup that you have one of the best rushing defenses in the country. You have shut down two of the best running backs in the country the last 2 weeks. And now you're going up against a Notre Dame rushing attack that won't even have their best running back at fully healthy in Jeremiah Love. I mean, we all saw the post on Twitter. Jeremiah Love is wearing a huge knee brace in practice for Notre Dame right now. I mean, that if you're a Notre Dame fan, that's not what you want to see. I mean, he does not look good in those clips. He looks hobbled, and yes, they have a really good stable running back. Shadarian Pierce, 720 yards. Anais Williams, 202. Even Cadron Young has 116 in 5 games and 21 carries. But they have all been struggling in the playoffs so far, and a lot of that goes back to Notre Dame's offensive line kind of struggling against these bigger, stronger defensive lines that they have faced in the college football playoffs, which I don't want to say strength of schedule, but this is where strength of schedule kind of matters. I mean, you look at Notre Dame's schedule this season; they have not faced many elite defensive fronts this season, if any, before the playoffs. I mean, maybe Texas A&M's, but outside of that, they have not faced many elite defensive fronts, front sevens like Penn State, like Notre, like Georgia. Georgia was able to shut down the running backs, wasn't able to shut down Leonard. Running quarterbacks have been a issue for Georgia all season, so that wasn't too surprising to see. That's going to be the big key in this one. Can Penn State slow down Leonard on the ground? If they can, like I said, I think they're in a really good spot. Can't see many other avenues for Notre Dame to move the ball consistently. So I like Penn State's ability to shut down the run more than Notre Dame's ability to shut down Penn State's running backs. Singleton and Allen have been playing some of their best football in recent weeks. Allen has looked phenomenal. If Allen continues to play like this, he's going to the NFL. He's headed to the NFL.
We'll get to those two. We're getting there. We gotta work with Jeremiah Love for now.
Sure. But yeah, I like Penn State's chances of shutting down Notre Dame's rushing attack rather than the vice versa.
Yeah, I didn't realize that knee brace. Like I know you said it to me before, but that is not an easy knee brace. That's like a hefty one. That's like what I had when I had ACL surgery for the first time and the second time.
Yeah.
So it's probably a strain of one of the muscles. And also, if you saw in that little clip, the cuts, like he's not cutting correctly. Like,
Yeah,
I mean he's not cutting correctly, but he's not doing
if you
it
can
with.
go back to that clip quickly, if you still have it, I mean,
It just did, yeah.
Watch him right after he does the drill and how noticeable of a limp he has after once he's done. I mean, he is significantly uncomfortable following that drill. I mean, it's he seems definitely hobbled now. Like I said, they have a really good stable running backs, but this isn't. The stats are the stats. They have not been able to run the ball with the running backs consistently in these first two games. Penn State's one of the best run defenses in the country. Just shut down the best running back in the country last week. I don't know if Notre Dame's going to be able to run the ball all that much against Penn State as things stand right now. Obviously,
Yeah.
things can change on Thursday, but the two data points we have are, I think, very favorable for Penn State.
Notre Dame wide receiver core. I know we complain about Penn State's wide receiver core all the time,
Yeah,
but this wide receiver core for Notre Dame is pretty bad. One guy with 400 yards on the year, one, two, three with 300 yards on the
yeah,
year, a couple with 200. It's spread out quite a bit. Meanwhile, obviously, Penn State has like 1,000 yard receiver or tight end, whatever you want to call him. Do it all, Mr. Swiss
yeah.
Army knife. So, but like you just said it, they had 90 passing yards, and I know we kind of harped on it, so you don't have to go too long into this one,
Yeah.
but this wide receiver core versus Penn State's secondary, I can't see a way where they really don't shut down this entire receiving core, to be honest with you.
I mean, yeah, again, based off what we've seen these first two games, I don't know if either of these teams are really going to be able to throw the ball. I mean, I think Penn State has a little bit of a better chance because Drew has the better arm talent and the ability to make some of those tougher throws. But yeah, this is a Notre Dame receiving core that really is not strong at all. Bo Collins is their leading receiver with 37, 458, and three touchdowns. Um, Mitchell Evans, their tight end, is solid, but nowhere near the likes of Tyler Warren. He has 34 and 311.
Mm-hmm.
Jaden Greathouse, Jordan Faison, Chris Mitchell, who Penn State was after in the portal last year a little bit. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, they have more guys than Penn State when it comes to you know receptions here. So in a little bit of a way, it's a little deeper than Penn State's wide receiver room, but it doesn't mean it's a great wide receiver room. I think the wide receiver room is pretty much a push between these two
Mm-hmm.
teams. Um, I think Trey Wallace is better than any wide receiver on Notre Dame, but I think outside of Trey Wallace, who do you really trust on Penn State to get open consistently?
Tyler, and that's pretty much
Well,
it.
yeah, and
I'll include that, just
yeah,
because
including
he's
Tyler. You got two guys there, Tyler and Trey Wallace, but Penn State's going to need a third guy to step up. It's kind of looked like it's Amari Evans the last few weeks, so maybe that continues to be the case. But yeah, I think Penn State's secondary should be able to do a good job of shutting down this uh, passing attack receiving room for Notre Dame. What will be interesting is that over the course of the season, Penn State has shown to have a weakness in the middle on short and intermediate passing routes. So I think
mm-hmm.
that's going to be something to watch. Does Notre Dame take advantage of those easy throws? Because Notre Dame cannot go with the same game plan they did against Georgia and expect to beat Penn State.
Yeah. Looking,
Um,
oh,
and I was
sorry.
just going to say, that
Oh,
being said, I can also see somebody like Jordan Faison, and I was just joking. We were just talking about this, talking to a couple of my friends who are at Black Shoe Diaries. Um, this is also kind of the situation where you could see somebody like Jordan Faison, who was 27, 325 and a touchdown this year, somehow going off for 5 for 125 and a touchdown because in the college football playoffs in games like this, it's usually those who you don't expect to have the big games that step up and have a big game to decide one. I'm not saying that's going to happen here, but that's always kind of something in the back of your head of. And same thing with Penn State. Maybe it is Amari Evans who comes out on Thursday has his biggest game of his career. Uh, but it's a mediocre passing attack, but I think you have to respect it enough because there is the possibility that one of these guys does have the ability to perhaps have a game that goes a long way in deciding the outcome.
looking at Notre Dame's offensive line, it's interesting. They're pretty good at run blocking. They're slightly above average at pass blocking. They've been better the past couple weeks in the playoffs, but there's still some struggles at those tackle spots, and
Yeah,
I think that's really where Penn State can
that's
abuse them if Abdul is healthy, like you said.
yeah. The big question with Abdul too is if he's healthy, where is he lining up? He played a lot of
That's true
linebacker
too.
against Boise. I think he played a lot of linebacker against Notre Dame as well. Like I said,
Mm-hmm.
QB Spy Leonard would make a lot of sense. Their pass protection, like you said, has been
Meh.
meh in the playoffs so far. 20 plus pressures allowed in two games.
Mm-hmm.
Not many sacks, but the pressures do add up. Anthony Knapp, their starting left tackle, is the one to really keep an eye on. 9 pressures allowed in two games. if Abdul plays defensive end, I really like his matchup there. Even with a main Vanover, I like that matchup there. On the other side of the line, they have, let me bring up,
46.9 on the season, by the way, pass blocking for
yeah,
Anthony Knapp, which is abysmal.
yeah, true freshman there, freshman All American. Only allowed 4 sacks this year, but these are type of games that those areas can get exposed. And on the other side, Emil Wagner, 21 pressures allowed, just 1 sack. I mean, this is a Notre Dame offensive line that according to PFF has only been credited with 6 sacks this year. That means the other
Crazy.
sacks have been credited to Riley Leonard for a multitude of reasons. But the tackles are the weakness. The interior of this Notre Dame defensive line is spectacular. Um, I mean, you look at their three. They have 3 guards that they play on a regular basis: Billy Scrowther, Rocco Spindler, who,
Mm-hmm.
if I am correct, did he get? I thought there was an offensive line who may have got banged. You know what? Thinking something else. Ignore me.
Okay.
Um, Billy Scrouth, Rocco Spindler, Sam Pendleton, all playing guard, have all been really good. I mean, combined 22 total pressures this season, 1 sack allowed. Their center, Pat Coogan, 6 pressures allowed, no sacks. I mean, they
Mm-hmm.
rarely let Riley Leonard even get hit. So, I mean, that is something I'm watching here as well. I think Penn State's DTs are going to have their hands full, but I think Denai Dassan, Amin Vanover, Abdul Carter have a chance to really wreck this game on the outside because, I mean, they've haven't allowed many sacks, but
Mm-hmm.
this is by far the best front seven that Notre Dame will have faced this season. And just that Anthony Knapp one in particular, 9 pressures allowed in 2 games. He has not looked good. I think that's a big chance for Penn State to take advantage. Emil Wagner is a little bit different, but I mean, we have seen Denai Dennis Sutton just wreck offensive tackles now for the last 3 games.
Yeah.
And if he continues that, I, I I think he's going to have a chance to have a really another good game on uh, Thursday night.
Now, I'm looking at their defensive line, for flipping the defense, I should say. Their defensive line's pretty solid. Riley Mills, 7.5 sacks on the year. That's pretty good. But they also look a little undersized at some positions. Like, if you look, like, their interior guys are what? I guess Riley Mills has good size, but Howard Cross is a little bit smaller
Well,
at
don't forget
6'1", 280-ish.
Riley Mills is also gone. Uh,
Oh, he is. You're right. I forgot about
yeah,
that.
he's
Wow.
out. So I mean, that's the injuries are
Racking
stacking
up.
up for Notre Dame on the offensive
I
side of the
forgot all about
football.
that. You're right.
Um, Riley Mills is out with the knee. Um,
So that's actually huge then.
yeah, I
I just
mean,
realized that. Fuck, I forgot.
I'm looking at their injuries list on covers.com, which is
Hmm.
a great site for injuries. But I'm looking at their injuries list. You obviously tight end Flanagan just got ruled out for the season. Love we know about, but Mills is out. They have a cornerback out, another defensive lineman, another cornerback, another safety. I mean, they're
They're
banged
banged
up.
up.
They're banged
Yeah.
up on both sides of the ball. But Mills is a huge missing piece of this Notre Dame front seven. He was one of their best players all season. Um, was getting led the team in pressures, led the team in sacks, was good against the run. I mean, that's the big one here. It is an undersized defensive line. I think, as you were mentioning, which I think is Penn State's offensive line has been playing some really good football the last few weeks, and I think that's another place where Penn State can really take advantage of Notre Dame. Um, we looked at that Georgia team this season. That Georgia team was not nearly as good in the trenches as in years past, in my opinion, and they were not getting the push up front in that game, which was a little surprising to me. But I think this Penn State offensive line has the ability, based off their recent play, to take advantage of Notre Dame's lack of size in the middle of in the front seven. Now, this is still a good defense for Notre Dame despite that. I mean, 127 yards allowed per game on the ground, 3.6 yards per carry. Those are pretty damn good numbers. But I think you look at how well Penn State's been running the ball, how well the offensive line's been playing against the one blocking for the run. It's a really favorable matchup for Penn State. The only thing I'm kind of concerned about for Penn State when it comes to the defense and the offensive line is they struggled to pick up the blitz quite a bit against Boise State. Notre Dame, if you watch the Georgia game, was blitzing a ton. I expect them to blitz a lot in this game as well, especially seeing how Penn State struggled to stop the blitz and how Drew against Boise State really, struggled with what Drew struggled with those blitzes.
Yeah. Uh, to kind of combine this one between linebacker and secondary, just to kind of wrap it up a little bit, because we're going a little long here. But there's is there secondary? I know there's some solid pieces there. I know Adon Schuler pretty well actually from New Jersey, but the rest of the guys they seem okay, but not great. I could be wrong. I mean,
I mean, this is a Notre Dame secondary that's only allowed 170 passing yards per game this season.
hmm
Um,
but who have they played really?
they haven't played many good quarterbacks. That is a good point.
Like
And
Army, USC, Indiana.
and they have had their share of poor performances when you look at it. 264 passing yards, a lot of Louisville, 269 at Georgia Tech, 360 USC. And early on last week, Gunnar Stockton was, able to throw the ball against Notre Dame quite a bit. Um,
Guy who's not a thrower
a
at
couple
all.
drops in that game, and it looks, a lot different. So I think there's opportunities to take advantage of this Notre Dame secondary, but I don't think Penn State really has the wide receivers to do so
Yeah.
outside of Tyler Warren. And you got to mention obviously Xavier Watts, All American, 6 interceptions this season. Adon Schuler, like you mentioned, been really good too. 3 interceptions this year. So the two safeties have 9 combined, and their cornerbacks have graded out quite well as well. Now you mentioned it, who have they really played? Not a ton of great quarterbacks this season. Drew will be the best quarterback they have faced this year, um,
Or
by
two,
far.
just
But
cook.
for me, it goes back to outside of Trey Wallace and uh, Tyler Warren. I'm not sure if Penn State has the wide receivers to really take advantage of any small, uh, miscues by this Notre Dame secondary that may occur during the game. Maybe Amari Evans, but this is a really good Notre Dame secondary, which you look at what Penn State's done through the air the first 2 games, hasn't really been great. It's gonna be tough for them to move the ball in the air against Notre Dame, in my opinion. If Penn State's gonna win this game, it's gonna have to be on the ground, uh, which we talked about. But
Yeah.
I, I would see either of these teams really moving the ball through the air. I wouldn't be surprised if both quarterbacks are kept under 200, 220 in this game.
I wouldn't be too shocking considering they just basically did that against Georgia. So
Yeah.
um, that's special teams. I forgot special teams. They're interesting because their kicker's not the best in the world when it comes to actual field goals, but he's 50 of 50 from PATs. He's 11 of 18 from field goals this season. But they're also pretty unique in the aspect of like you saw it last week against Georgia. They substituted 11 people immediately for the special teams for the offense. Stuff like that, I feel like they could get a little tricky here and there. So it's something I think Penn State will have to watch out for because I honestly feel like that, and I might be foreshadowing a little bit because to our predictions, but I feel like that's the only way really they could pull this one out if you're Notre Dame.
Um, I think Penn State's gonna have to be disciplined on special teams. I mean, what that Boise State game I think showed a lot was that Penn State's um, punt return, especially on punts, hasn't been
hmm
you know uh, hasn't had to do too much this year, and they not even just against Boise State, but against SMU on kickoff returns too. There's been some concerning, you know, plays on special teams that Notre Dame is really good on special teams could take advantage of, and those plays may not be touchdowns from SMU or Boise, could turn into touchdowns from uh, for Notre Dame. So that's something that I'm going to be watching in this one. From that, I expect special teams for Notre Dame are very good. Mitch Jeter, like you said, 11 for 18 this season, which is down from 12 for 14 from last year. 0 for 1 from 50 plus this year. 8 for 11 from in 49. Um, so that's something to watch. But hey, that kickoff return last week against Georgia basically decided the game. So that'll be something to watch. When it comes down
hmm
to, I think for either side here, it's going to be close. But it's going to be about who I think obviously turnovers are going to be big. I think
Hmm.
whoever wins turnover battle here probably has a pretty good shot of winning this game. It's going to be it's about making as few as mistakes as possible. I don't want to say you're playing to not lose in this game,
Hmm.
but in some ways, it kind of I think will feel like that at times. It's going to be about field position. It's going to be about forcing the opposing offense to do as much as possible to score. Um,
Fair.
you don't want to give either of these teams short yardage, because one short yardage possession may determine this game. I mean, my total right now is about 33 points.
Hmm.
That I mean, a short yardage possession could very well decide this game for either side, and that's where I'm really at in this game. I think it's gonna come down to who makes the fewer mistakes in terms of turnovers, who makes the fewer mistakes on special teams. That includes Riley Thompson cannot afford a bad punt in this game. Ryan Barker has to make his kicks. I think Penn State's going to be choosy when when James Franklin has decided to go for it or kick a field goal. I think he's going to be choosy. I think you have to be pretty, you know, honest with yourself of where you think his limit is. If that's 40 yards, then anything 41 plus, you're going for it on fourth down. It's going to be really interesting to see how that goes. But yeah, I'm going to be really interested to see how both these coaches game. Um, Especially as it goes on, because it's going to come down to those, fourth and two at midfield type of decisions that I think are going to go a long way to decide this one. Um, I know I probably said a lot of the obvious, including, whoever turns the ball over less, but I think this is going to be such a low scoring game. I don't see either team move the ball a whole ton, that it's going to come down to whoever gets, I think, the most short field or shorter field opportunities in this one.
And we know James Franklin has proven over the past month or so that he's not afraid to show his nuts and go for it on crazy downs. So
Yeah,
I
and
kind
I
of
think
respect it recently.
the last thing I'll say is, if you're a Penn State fan, you look at that what they did against Notre Dame did against Georgia, and I think you have to feel decently well just based off that game.
Hmm.
Georgia's similar to Penn State defensively. Notre Dame only had 244 total yards in that game. Their offense found the end zone. Let's see, twice, once, once.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Not a
once.
great, not a great game.
One.
Yeah.
They found the end zone once, and I was on a short field. I think it's, like I said, all about field position. I think Penn State's going to try to pin Notre Dame deep with a lot of punt, which I won't be surprised if they go conservative route on fourth down near midfield. Try to punt, get them deep, within the 20, and then
Hmm.
force them to go, the length of the field, because they weren't able to do that against Notre Dame. And I think that's going to be basically what this game comes down to for Penn State's defense.
All right, so we went over just about everything. Give me this prediction here. Penn State is currently, it opened at 1.5 in favor of Notre Dame. It actually jumped to 2.5. I thought it would go the opposite way, to be honest with you. Over under 45.5. What are you kind of feeling there?
Yeah, I think a lot of casual fans are betting this one towards Notre Dame here. I think a lot
Mm,
of people are looking at Notre Dame from a aspect of what they've done all season. When the reality
nothing.
is Notre Dame has not played great football these last two games. You could say probably similar about Penn State, but the rushing
Hmm.
attack for Notre Dame not being able to have success these last two games is really what stands out to me. If they're struggling against Notre Dame and Georgia, I think they're going to struggle against Penn State, especially considering what we've seen Penn State do the last two games. Um, I'm not confident Penn State's going to be able to move the ball a ton, but I think they'll be able to move the ball to win this game. So that's why I'm going Penn State 20, Notre Dame 13. And I think we're going to be talking about a Penn State Ohio State rematch here in a couple days.
Yeah, can't wait for that big noon kickoff. I'm just the tweet got some pretty good views, not gonna
I
lie.
did.
But it's on ESPN. It's a night game, so everyone can relax if it is a Big Ten championship after all. But I'm kind of feeling similar to you. I actually feel like this score might be similar to the Notre Dame Georgia game. I just think there's a gap. Like I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball that much, and that's their bread and butter.
Yeah.
Especially when Jeremiah Love's not healthy. Like he had 8 for what 100 plus against Indiana. He's not
Yeah,
healthy.
I
He's
mean
not
the
doing that.
longest carry for a running back for Notre Dame against Georgia was 8 yards. Um,
Yeah. Now, could Riley Leonard technically run for
yeah,
100 yards? Yeah, he could,
and
but
you
I
have
just
to
don't see
keep
it.
Riley Leonard contained. That's I mean we mentioned I think that's going to be the big key here for Penn State is if you can contain Riley
Hmm.
Leonard. I don't see an avenue for Notre Dame to move the ball efficiently in this game on a consistent basis because Riley Leonard's I
Hmm.
don't think a good enough quarterback to make some of the throws that he's going to have to make. This wide receiver room for them is pretty mediocre, much like Penn State's. And I think it's going to come down to
Hmm.
whoever running backs can move the ball better. And right now, I'd have to favor Penn State based off how they've been running since the
Hmm.
really the Washington game.
Yeah. I'm going to go 24-10. I'm going to go similar to that Notre Dame Georgia game. I really just don't see Notre Dame really putting up much of an effort on offense. I think Penn State's defense has just been dominant, and I'm going to see it continue to be dominant.
Yeah,
So
I think
I might be reaching, but
no, I mean I said 2013, 24-10. I mean that though people may look at your 14 points and
I can say, what
and
are you
think
doing?
that's a little big, but and it may be a little big, but that's fine. But also, I think the other thing I think here is um, just again with these two defenses, with these two offenses, not only just turnovers or short field, but this is very much a game where if somebody gets a pick six in the second half, that could very well be the decider in this one, or a pick six easily makes a 20-13 game a 28-13 game, 27-13 game. So I mean, I think there's definitely avenues for that to happen here. I would say right now though, I see a little bit more of an avenue for Penn State to win this game than I do Notre Dame. I think Drew's arm talent and abilities as a quarterback are that much better than Riley Leonard's in this one. I mean, Riley Leonard was outplayed by Gunnar Stockton last week. That was Gunnar Stockton's first career start. Was
Yeah.
not. I mean, and he looked pretty good against a. It's not Gunnar Stockton's fault that Georgia lost. So,
No, not
uh,
at all.
yeah, I think it comes down to that. I think Drew's the better quarterback here. I trust him to make some of the bigger throws when needed. And I think Penn State's rushing attack will be able to get it done a little bit more than Notre Dame's. I wouldn't be surprised if Notre Dame's rushing attack gets a little bit back on, um, you know, point here, but I don't expect them to have a big day by any means.
Hmm.
But it's going to obviously come down to whoever's kind of got that clutch gene, right? Penn
Hmm.
State historically has not had the clutch gene in these type of games, but this is a time. This is the opportunity for Penn State to kind of change the narrative. Penn State wins this game. That's a pretty damn big win, and then you're just one win away from immortality.
Yeah. All right, so that's pretty much it. That's our game preview. Definitely check out more content at pennstate.rivals.com. We have a bunch of preview stuff, matchup stuff, like you just mentioned before. College football 25 simulation, which it's going pretty interesting if you watched it. If you haven't watched it yet, go check it out on our YouTube channel. But for me and Dylan, that's another episode of the Penn State 365 podcast. Signing off.